This is the Celiac Project, two guys talking gluten-free. Just wanted to give a little disclaimer. We are not medical experts, doctors, dietitians,
Nurses.
bone experts, surgeons.
We're only experts at being celiac patients.
So enjoy the show. And if you're going to do any changes to your diet or need real medical advice, please go to the medical professionals.
That's what they're there for. We have an amazing treat for you. If you want to listen and watch this week's episode, you can go to youtube.com/@celiacproject and watch it there.
If you prefer, you can listen as you usually do. We hope to have some of our future shows on video as they are available, so look for that as well. Now let's get to the show.
Sounds good.
Today's episode of the Celiac Project podcast is sponsored by Taste Republic, who believes everyone deserves to eat good, fresh pasta, no matter their dietary restrictions. All of Taste Republic's pastas are certified gluten-free and beloved for not sacrificing taste or texture. With fan favorites such as 4-cheese tortelloni and cauliflower linguine, Taste Republic has a wide range of pastas to choose from. Find Taste Republic at retailers such as Whole Foods Market, Publix, Sprouts, Meijer, H-E-B, or online at tasterepublic.com. You found the Celiac Project podcast, two guys talking gluten-free. I'm Mike.
And I'm Cam.
And who's joining us on the podcast today, Cam?
Today we have Aadya S and Jackson Rau of the Celiac Disease Foundation.
We're so happy to have them on to talk about youth advocacy in the celiac world. Let's get to the show.
Sounds good.
Cam and I are so excited to be joined today by two wonderful guests, Jackson Rau, Jackson of the Celiac Disease Foundation, and Aadya. How are you both doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing great.
Yeah, we're great. Great to have you here with us today. And I know you were both part of this exciting summit that we're going to get into. Before we get to that, Aadya, would you share a little bit about your celiac journey and maybe how you got involved with the summit and CDF?
Yeah, for sure. So, hi, my name is Aadya. I was diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 5 years old, and I'm turning 16 soon. So it's been just about 11 years. About 4 years ago, I joined the Celiac Youth Leadership Council, which basically advocates for celiac disease in the state of Washington. And recently, earlier this year, they had an essay competition to basically go to the summit. So I applied for that, and that's where my journey into the summit started.
That's great. Really excited to hear more about that. And before we continue, Jackson, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do at the Celiac Disease Foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again to both of you for inviting us. It's very exciting. I listen to so many podcasts, but this is the first one I've been on. So this is a big moment for me. So I've been with the Celiac Disease Foundation now for about 3.5 years, working on the policy team. We have a 2-person policy team here at the foundation. So we are small but mighty, working, on the federal side. We've recently pursued some state house bills and even working on the international level as well. Prior to joining the foundation, I worked for about 4 years at a patient health advocacy firm. So that's where I represented. We worked with around 30 different patient nonprofit organizations, doing similar work to what I'm doing now with many advocacy summits over the years. So plenty of experience in that area.
Very cool. And so nice to meet you both. My first question, Aadya, is for you. What got you excited about advocating for those with celiac disease? And also, I know there was like an essay component to the summit and how you got in. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So what got me interested in advocating for celiac disease was definitely my personal journey. I was diagnosed when I was pretty young, so I saw the different challenges that people with celiac disease faced. And I didn't know too many people with celiac disease, but when I heard about the Celiac Youth Leadership Council, I was really excited about the opportunity to meet more people and learn from them as well as share my own experiences. So that's what kind of got me started. And then earlier this year, they had the essay competition. So in that, they had 2 different prompts. The first one was about the American with Disabilities Act and how schools and public institutions are supposed to make reasonable accommodations for those with celiac disease. And they asked me to kind of share my experience and what I'd like to see for people with celiac disease in the future to help them thrive. So in this essay, I essentially just talked about my different experiences and how they've been challenging in both restaurants, schools, and just being in public, and how safe food should basically be a right, but for someone with celiac disease, it can be very challenging, anxiety inducing, and it feels like most of the time our kind of health goes into the hands of someone else who might not know as much about celiac disease as there should be. So that's what I talked about. And then the second essay was about my experience already and engaging leaders at the local or national scale. So in this essay, I talked about how earlier, I believe last year, I testified in Washington Congress for HB 2225, which is an AI chatbot regulation bill that was recently passed. And this was a really exciting opportunity for me, just as a high schooler, to share my voice and testify for that bill. So that really introduced me to policy and how my voice could make a difference. I heard so many different people testifying there, and it was really inspiring. And that led me to also go on and reach out to my senators for another bill on AI sextortion. So it was really interesting getting involved in that kind of policy and advocacy pipeline.
Very cool. Very impressive as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so impressed. So what year are you in high school right now?
I'm going into my junior year.
Okay, that's great. So impressed when everybody who's doing advocacy work and to start it at such a young age. Want to get into some of the details of the summit. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience there, maybe some of the highlights, and if there was like a standout moment for you or moments that you want to share?
For sure. There were so many highlights of the summit. The first thing I would say was that I was able to meet so many people from many different states, and we all had such diverse backgrounds and different experiences. But it was really interesting how it all kind of came back together to like a greater awareness towards celiac disease and that kind of common goal. And then another highlight was on the actual day where we got to talk to representatives. I found out that my local representative's assistant actually had celiac disease, and many other had different gastrointestinal issues. So it was interesting seeing how everyone's different story connected back to celiac disease and how excited they were to kind of hear from us. I remember my representative said that she was really excited for this meeting in specific, and it was just a great surprise.
It's very literal representative. It's like you feel like you're actually being represented. So it's really nice to have that moment for sure.
Yeah, nice too, like to have the face-to-face, like when we're talking about these issues in person, it's like different, it's wonderful, the four of us being here together, virtually, but like being boots on the ground and talking to them, that's really a great experience just to be face-to-face and have these topics to discuss.
My next question is for you, Jackson. Can you give us an update on what came out of the summit and the update on the latest legislation around celiac disease, food labeling, all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the summit took place in March 2026. So at that point, that's really a key moment during the appropriations cycle for Congress, as both the House Appropriations Committee and the Senate Appropriations Committee, they are working at that time to finalize their proposals for the next fiscal year. So that's a key time for advocates like us to go onto the Hill, Capitol Hill, and advocate for funding for celiac disease research. Celiac disease has only received federal funding since the beginning of this decade. It started in fiscal year 2021, and that was through the National Institutes of Health, NIH. So many other disease groups have received funding for decades and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So we are significantly behind in that area. So we need to continue every single year to fight for that funding for celiac disease research, both through NIH and through a program at the Department of Defense called the Peer Reviewed Medical Research Program, where we've been an eligible condition for federal research dollars since 2023. So that was our primary ask when we were on Capitol Hill in March, was to continue to support the funding for both of those programs for fiscal year 2027. But recently, we have introduced on the House side a bill called the Celiac Safety Act. And that's taken a lot of our attention here over the last couple of months. It was introduced at the end of May, and we've already gotten nearly 30 co-sponsors on the House side, which is really exciting in such a short amount of time. And that's thanks to advocates like Aadya across the country who are reaching out to their representatives through our website. We have a place where you can easily email those congressional offices. And then we had a Call Your Representative Day a few weeks ago where folks actually called their members on the House side and asked them to co-sponsor. And the results that we've already gotten from that are super exciting too. We already have 18 new co-sponsors as of today on the bill since the Call Your Rep Day. So really exciting to see so much support on something that's so important to our community in such a short amount of time.
That is great. That's a great response. And thank you so much for sharing that update with us. I'm also curious too, what is the plan for 2027 DC Summit?
Yeah, these Hill Days, these advocacy summits are really important to me because I've just seen firsthand the type of impact that they can make. I tell this story to everyone that's willing to listen about my first Hill Day experience from my first job in DC, where the group that I was with had a 5-year-old advocate who joined the meetings. Her name was Hope, and she essentially led every meeting in the Senate and House offices. And she went in, she said, here's the GI disorder that's impacting me. Here's how it's impacting my family. Here's what you can do to help us. And that was at a time in my life where I was still trying to, I knew I wanted to do something in the policy realm, didn't know exactly what it could be. When I saw this 5-year-old advocate going and inspiring change, it really made a huge difference on me professionally in terms of what I want to do with the rest of my life. So these Hill Days, these advocacy summits are just such a great way for communities to come together and impact change in DC. When I first came to CDF, we wanted to make sure that this was a priority for us. So the first year we had just our staff go and do Hill meetings. And then the second year we had about 25 advocates or so that participated in 30 meetings. And then this past year we had 35 advocates participate in 60 meetings. So we want to continue to grow this. Some of the other organizations that I worked with in the past, they have events for these Hill Days where they're bringing in nearly 1,000 people, and they are taking over Capitol Hill for a day. And they all have their swag on, like a bright red shirt or whatever the case may be, to show everyone, I am here and here's what we're advocating for. So I really want to get there eventually with celiac disease. It's going to be something that we have to grow gradually, of course. We can't go from 20 people to 500. But this next year, we're definitely planning on expanding the program. We already have the room block and everything at the hotel, and we are planning on hopefully nearly doubling the number of participants that we had last year, but absolutely growing it on an annual basis until we get up to one of those large numbers.
Awesome. And I love that story about the 5-year-old. It reminds me, Michael and I had just done a podcast recently and had an email from a 9-year-old. And the whole time we're reading the email, we thought it was from an adult. And then at the bottom line, it says, and at my age, 9 years old, we were both shocked. So I totally have had the same experience that you're having as far as that goes as well. And so that's awesome and amazing.
You can see it so clearly too when you're meeting with the congressional staffers, just the change in their face when they have, someone like Aadya or someone like Hope or one of our youth advocates that are coming into these rooms and saying, here's what you can do to help me. These people aren't even, for the most part, these people aren't even old enough to vote yet, but they're still so interested in policy and doing things to positively impact their communities. It's really inspiring.
100%.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to take a minute to talk about our sponsor, Taste Republic. Taste Republic was founded with a singular purpose, and it's one that they have not swayed from, producing high-quality, fresh, gluten-free pastas.
Yeah, Cam, and what's really cool was how it all started. One of the Taste Republic co-founders was selling traditional pasta at the local farmer's market, had a loyal customer diagnosed with celiac disease, and was upset that they could no longer eat the pasta.
And with that as the driving force, he set out to develop a recipe that was gluten-free, yet matched the taste and texture of traditional pastas.
Yeah, and the wild part is that Taste Republic really pulled it off. They still operate under the idea that everyone deserves to eat good pasta no matter their dietary needs. They continue to develop some of the best gluten-free pastas available, like their famed 4-cheese tortelloni.
The best part is you can find your favorite Taste Republic bag of 4-cheese tortelloni or spinach and cheese tortelloni at retailers such as Meijer, Publix, and Target.
Check out all their delicious pastas at tasterepublic.com, where you can use their convenient store locator to find them locally or purchase online. Now let's get back to the show.
Sounds good.
It's really interesting. I'm thinking back, we've been doing our podcast over a decade, and there's always been, I feel like the youth movement, people like yourself, Aadya, are driving it, where there's a purity to why you're doing this. You don't have a career yet, and you're just sort of honest about the experience of living with celiac. And I feel like we can all learn and grow from seeing people like Aadya and Hope and all of that. And maybe both of you can answer this question. I'm sure we have listeners who now are inspired by the work that you're both doing. What is the best way for our listeners out there who want to get involved? I know everybody can't be at the summit. What are some ways we can support this work and make it so it's a larger wave of people helping out?
Yeah. So, like you said, at the moment, we just don't have the capacity for everyone that's interested to come to the Hill Day. We obviously hope to continue to grow that every year, but there are always campaigns on our website that are available where all you have to do is put in your contact information and your address, and then it will automatically email the office of your member of Congress. We have one up right now for the Celiac Safety Act, like I mentioned. There are a few other bills that we're supportive of that have those campaigns as well. The Celiac Caucus is something that was established a few years ago in the House of Representatives by Representative Betty McCollum. We have about 20 members in the caucus at this point supporting all of our celiac disease centered policy issues. So always working on growing that. So that's always available. With what we're doing right now with the Celiac Safety Act, it doesn't have to be a scheduled call your representative day for folks to reach out to their members of Congress. And as we've seen with adding so many co-sponsors over the last couple of weeks after that last campaign, it would be great if folks continue to reach out to their members, schedule phone calls. The month of August, Congress is on recess, so they'll be back in their local districts. So that's an opportunity too, where if someone, that lives in Washington, like Aadya, where they don't have to travel all the way to DC to meet with their member, there's an opportunity to do that much closer to their hometown. I am local to DC, so something that I always offer advocates that are interested is that if they want to come in, if they're already in town or nearby, or if they want to make a trip out of it to come to DC and take meetings, I'm always willing to schedule like a mini Hill Day where I go in with the advocates and take as many meetings as we can get. And that's a great excuse for me too, to get into those offices, because it's a lot easier when you have an advocate instead of just someone like me trying to give them a bunch of paperwork saying, here's why you should support XYZ. So anyone that's interested in any form of advocacy related to celiac disease, please feel free to reach out to the foundation. We're always happy to connect with you. Advocacy@celiac.org is a great place to get started if you'd like to reach out and get more involved.
That sounds so cool and awesome. So thanks for letting everyone know about that too.
And from my end, within the Celiac Youth Leadership Council, it was the first year where we had this essay contest and they were able to send someone to the summit. So I know that in future years, they're trying to increase the number of people going. And within the Celiac Youth Leadership Council, we've started learning more about policy together. We're always following the Celiac Disease Foundation's, the new bills that they're supporting. And I think the summit has a large part to play in that, like seeing just how inspiring it can be to go and share your own story to the people who are actually making these decisions was really incredible to see. And this also inspired me. Like recently, I've been working on creating a new website, which is called Autoimmune Voices, where I basically scrape bills for different autoimmune diseases and have these different pre-generated summaries and these letters that they can send their representative to make it even more easier to see different bills and the ways that they can actually have their voice seen and heard, and something that they can just do at home.
That's great too, because that is kind of part of the problem is some people, they have the inspiration to want to make change, but then either the bureaucracy, the paperwork, or whatever it is that difficulty to make that next step, and you're making it even easier so that people can be heard. That is great. And on that note too, you're such a young advocate. I wanted to know if you had any advice for any other young people that do want to advocate for celiac disease. Obviously, they could go the route you just suggested, but as far as coming up with their own idea, do you have any suggestions or advice, or like where somebody should look inside themselves even to find where their route is to be able to advocate for themselves?
I would say that the first step definitely is some reflection on where you think the biggest gaps are for someone with celiac disease and access and awareness. And the essay competition really allowed me to do that and kind of reflect on my own experiences. And then the second piece of advice I would have is just go out and share your voice. It doesn't matter if your experiences are positive or negative, but just really authentically share how your celiac disease experience has been. A lot of the times, I feel like people with celiac disease, they might feel like their experiences have to go a certain way or they need to portray it positively. But really being able to share the experiences that you've had, I think is very impactful.
Do you have any hope for the future of these types of summits?
I think in the future, I'd love to see more people come. I know that everyone in Silk or the Celiac Youth Leadership Council was just so excited about it. So maybe if we could have like a virtual meeting, like adding more people on with those members of Congress would be really exciting. And just being able to expand it even further. The excitement there was just so tangible. And I hope that so many other people are able to experience that in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so inspired by you. And I think we should also shout out, you've been involved with Seattle Children's, right? Shout out to Ann Moon and Dr. Lee and the incredible team. I love how them and many other hospitals were by University of Chicago here in Chicago, and what Dr. Verma is doing around getting the teens involved and organized. And so great that you're part of that. And I have, I think, one more question for you, Aadya. Do you feel like this experience has inspired you for the future? Do you want to do this type of work as you go to college and beyond? Has this had any effect, like career-wise, you think?
Yeah, most definitely. Before, I was basically trying to advocate for different bills. I talked about HB 2225 and being able to testify for that. And that was definitely impactful. But when I was able to go to the summit and connect my own story to it and just see how much like my voice made a difference for the things that impact me on a day-to-day basis, I think that was just phenomenal. And in the future, I'd definitely like to pursue public policy or continue with these kind of events. I think the summit has just inspired me so much to continue doing adjacent work.
That's great. And I see you could be, maybe we have President Aadya someday. You know, I don't want to, no pressure, but you are very impressive. And I know that big things are in your future, whatever you decide. Again, not trying to put that pressure on you, one step at a time. And Jackson, again, for anybody who maybe wants to learn more or get involved or see how they can be of help, is there anything that we haven't gone over today that you think would be helpful to share?
Well, first, I'll just say that Aadya has my vote. So if you ever do run Aadya, please just let me know.
Thank you.
I think that we did cover everything pretty well in terms of different ways to get involved. I will just say, though, that, you know, with Aadya and all these other young people that are just inspiring me so greatly, I know that some folks may think about advocacy and working on celiac disease policy, and they may get worried, and they'll watch the news and they'll see how divided everything feels right now. And they'll wonder, what can I even do? Is there a possibility of me making a difference right now? Or should I just close my eyes and ears and not really think about it too much? But there really is a way to impact health policy right now. The Celiac Safety Act, which I mentioned before, this is something that has broad bipartisan support. What we are going into Congress and asking for, this is not something where one of the two parties is going to look at you and immediately say, pass, we're not interested. There's broad support for celiac disease research. There's broad support for changing food labeling so that someone with celiac disease can go to the store and safely look at the back of a package and say, oh yeah, I can definitely eat this, or, oh yeah, I need to put this back down. These are really simple solutions. And like the Celiac Safety Act, that is something that doesn't cost any federal funding, which is always a big concern with health policy legislation. So what I would say is, don't be concerned with what politics look like right now, because the type of politics that we are working in the patient advocacy space, is an entirely different realm where anybody can make a difference.
That's awesome, and also great advice. And thank you for sharing that, because that brings a lot of optimism for a lot of people.
Yeah, well said. There's a lot of energy for these type of bills, and it's a great time to get involved, have your voice heard. So yeah, we appreciate you saying that, Jackson. Aadya and Jackson, so much fun talking to you today, having you join us on the podcast. And we'll talk to you maybe after next year's summit, see how that goes, and really appreciate all the great work that both of you are doing.
Thank you so much for having us. It was great meeting you.
It was a pleasure having you both.
Thank you again. And thank you for what you're doing with this platform that you have and just continuing to raise awareness for the community. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate that, Jackson. Thank you. Thanks for listening to today's show. If you like the podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to the podcast. This will help other people find the show. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.